The leaves on the path are deep and golden brown. They snap and rustle underfoot. The air is chill, and there is a slight mist that softens everything. The sky is grey and the bushes drip with moisture. Yet there are little green shoots under the leaves waiting to spring up. Tiny catkins on the hazel branches, and where they have escaped from nearby gardens, patches of white cyclamen. The year moves forward. It means it's time to go inside for a cup of coffee and some gingerbread.
Hello, I'm Peter John Cooper. Well, here we are at Tales from the Cliff Edge number 50. Have you listened to all the others? If you have, thanks for coming this far with me. If not, why not pop back and catch some of the tales you might have missed? And today, the story I think is a fitting ending for this series. I'm calling it The Cliff Edge Photographer. She pauses in the middle of the cul-de-sac and faces up at the great red Edwardian building opposite. She can feel the warmth radiating from that century-old brickwork. Hear the sound of the breeze singing softly in the aerials on the roof. Hear also the rattling of water from a downpipe as somebody empties a sink in one of the bathrooms. She raises her camera and for some time contemplates the image she is creating before pressing the shutter release. To her, the very mass of the building sums up the past and the present, and probably the future. She has only recently come to consider the irony of her living here in this haven designed for the returned and retired commanders of the Raj and of many and various parts of southern Asia and Africa, and how in various apartments still lurk the shades of Sir Reginald and his one-legged manservant Phillips, and also Dame Amelia and her surprisingly athletic-looking companion Miss Pym. She has made the same journey herself, but under quite different circumstances, different times, different reality. But oddly, the same outcome. This last vestige of empire was already faded when she made the trip through the auspices of one of the charities that had been left behind by kindly meaning, loveless Edwardian ladies of some means, but no prospect or perception of the future, somehow clinging on to what little they had of their violet and rose-petal-scented present. She had not met with hostility when she entered the school, and because she was clever, there was enough to keep her out of the way of all but the most determined bullies, and, she reasoned, that it was no more than she could have suffered with older sisters anyway. if she had had siblings. She made the transition to university on a scholarship easily enough. But when she had graduated and was released into this strange, alien world, she came to realise dimly that those establishments had indeed substituted for a family and filled any gap where parents might have been. And through her, those Edwardian ladies had indeed achieved some legacy. Without being in any way sentimental, she thought of those anonymous, forgotten, sepia-coloured women as being as close to parents as she would ever know. And because of them, she was in the remarkable position of being entirely free of any sort of ties to anyone or any place in the world. Someone had spotted one of her quirky photographs in a college magazine and had passed it on to a national periodical, and thus she had transitioned into being a photographer. At first her pictures were seized on as novelties, but then they became valued because of the truth they conveyed. And now, after years have passed and she is certain of herself and her craft, it is clear to her that what the lens perceives is where she is, where she has existence. Not in any sentimental yearning sort of way. She does not regret the absence of family and home. After all, it is far too long ago that they had any corporeal existence. But she now supposes that what the lens sees in some way fills that part of her unconscious where they might have resided. She is at once a distant observer of life and a participant. It is the myriad of tiny details that she is at liberty to observe and assemble at her behest that become her family, while the rest of humanity, caught up in the maelstrom of the details of their individual lives, have neither the time nor the context to observe or understand with the wit and insight that she does. From here, the images are perfectly framed and clear in her mind, across the short green grass, sloping down past the dark pines and gorse bushes to the rippling silver sea just beyond the cliff-top fence. Here, under the trees, is where the enchanter's nightshade grows. Somebody once described it to her as a plant of rather spindly, unprepossessing appearance, but she prefers the luscious, magical image that name conjures. She has many such stage pictures in her mind, carefully composed, pin-sharp focused, not available to others. In the shadows of the bushes too dark for others to see, Cassia Windlehawk patrols, keeping the neighbourhood from danger by sheer willpower. This is where Molly Ingerster fades in and out of existence, and if she stands very still, she might just make the ambiphonium out from the background. She is an ambiphonium herself, she might think, if she wanted to think in that way of letting sensation pass into and through her. This is the tree root across the path, where the old man trips every time he passes and has to be supported by his son. And in these bushes she overhears two rather amateur crooks sharing a roll-up, waiting for 3 o'clock. Or is it 1/4 past? over here, the cliff-top fence where that maths teacher whom she only ever thought of as Sir met his sad end. Out there in the bay, she knows just where the dark figure of a fugitive will be swimming and swimming backwards and forwards between the groins, never able to outlive his past. And a little further up the beach, where the princess used to come to swim, and where one day the tide went out and kept on going out until the bay was dry. Thank goodness it's back now. Oh, here is where Maureen had her bag snatched by the rugby club, where Tina Tonks had a small demonstration against unfair treatment of dolphins, and where Patricia Jantz sat at her little portable desk, smoking her Russian cigarettes and typing her very popular hymns. The zigzag path where a forsaken soul creeps up at dead of night to see the shadow of his wife projected on a window blind. She recalls Nigel from Busy Bee Finance popping in and out of the flats up here like a very busy honeybee. Oh, this is where Clarissa's Hotel used to stand, where Leonard Smallbone followed the driver of the train for the late, slow and miserable railway company. She pushes through that throng. Their voices rise in volume. "People," she says, quietening them with a gesture. "Friends, yes. Friends, yes, you are all my friends. Thank you for answering my call. We have been on a long journey together." There is another murmur. "Yes, even though we have not strayed from this small strip of green, these yellow sands, this silver sea, and this clear, clean air, we have travelled together through time. You," she points to the family of itinerant Neolithic hunters that no one else sees, "you from the deep past, and you," she indicates the Uberu missile delivery man, "you whose place is here in the far future. Others from time gone to times to come." And even you, even Molly Ingister from a different set of dimensions. You all belong here now. You have stepped out of the shadows and have become real. Even your little orphan stories that have little association with this place, you are part of us now. Jane selling apples outside the Globe Theatre, the Voyagers in the slipcoats, St. Supage. She inclines her head in brief reverence. You have all stepped out of the shadows of my fogged imagination and now have acquired your passport to this place. You are all honorary citizens of the Westcliff Green. You have made little groups and associations that I have not mentioned. The Waggy Tail Club, who assemble every morning by that bench over there. The Wanderers, those who come out whatever the weather because you have nowhere else to congregate. You may sleep in the DHSS hostel or in your own cars or vans, but you are holding your lives together because you have this place to meet. It's always open, sunshine, rain, snow or gale. Then there are the wayfarers, more troubled. People who cannot settle in this world and sleep a night or two beneath the rhododendron bushes or curled up on the benches, waiting to meet the dealer by the public lavatory. You may not stay long before moving on, but you are as free here as anyone. There are the wellness fanatics who come to sprint backwards and forwards between rows of little cones, or swing weights or spar with each other with big leather gloves and pads. Sometimes you are joined by that pretty girl who sits cross-legged on her yoga mat with her iPhone on a little tripod, showing the world just how well she is. There are the walkers, some in shorts and t-shirts, whatever season of the year it is, some in heavy mountaineering kit with big boots and ski poles. The two types meet and cross as they complete their 10,000 steps. The wheelers who dash along the paths on their bikes full of smug self-importance. Those of you who come here as families to celebrate Eid or Diwali with a feast, or just have a jolly picnic in the sun. And those three little girls standing hand in hand on their own. You are all welcome. Thus, she addresses all those who have turned up at her urging for this great event, commissioned by Time magazine under the banner My Family. Yes, she has fame enough for that. It is said she had heard in some distant part of the old empire that everyone has two deaths. The first, when your body yields to time or disease or accident. The second, and more important, the last time your name is spoken in the world. She cannot speak the names of those assembled before her. Indeed, she does not know their names, only the sobriquets she has bestowed on them herself in her mind. But she can capture their likenesses on her camera. It might give the anonymous, the forgotten, some continuing existence somewhere. She supposes there might be such a photograph of her. She has not thought about it before. A long photograph hanging in a dark corridor of a school somewhere. One of several dozen girls assembled in 3 rows. The ones at the back standing on benches, the smaller girls sitting cross-legged on the grass in front, all staring ahead dutifully. The photograph now browning at the edges, and only one in a line of similar photographs, 100 or more, stretching all the way down the long corridor, with the first containing the dutiful, loveless faces of kindly meaning, loveless, Edwardian young ladies of some means, but no prospect or perception of the future, somehow clinging on to what little they had of their violet and rose-petal-scented present. And thus were the people and characters of the Westcliff Green also assembled in 3 rows, the taller ones at the back and the small, invisible ones at the front, kneeling or sprawling on the sweet-smelling short green grass to appear on the front cover of Time. Well, thank you for listening to Tales from the Cliff Edge, number 50. Although I'm taking a break here, I'll be back with something extra special in a few weeks. Watch out for the trailer. And I mustn't forget to say a big thank you to all those who've helped me on this journey by reading or performing some of the pieces. And among those, Jane McKell, Eltjo deVries, Trisha Lewis, Elinor Cooper and Holly Cooper. And of course, all the people of the West Cliff who've been my inspiration. Thank you for listening. Love you all.